I always knew I was going to go abroad, like I knew from the start, like when I came into school, and then like there was just the choices. And I mean, the London program had like everything I was looking for. Like they spoke English, they were big in the media industry, and from London I could get to like anywhere in Western Europe. So like London seemed like a really good option.
Similar thing for me. I mean, I knew I wanted to travel, but I've actually never left the country, and I felt like the least daunting thing for me to suddenly move to another country for 4 months would go to somewhere that they speak English. So that was a big draw. I've always wanted to go to England, and living in London was kind of a dream realized. And the biggest thing was that it was through the communication school. So I thought it was cool that I'd be going with like 40 other kids that all were in like similar majors to me, which I think made it awesome because everyone had a lot in common.
Yeah.
Well, I chose the London program because when I was a counselor at a sleepaway summer camp, they had a bunch of people from an international program working at American camps, and most of them were from England. So I think that
Camp America.
yeah, it was Camp America. Yeah, so that was the first thing that started to get me thinking about Europe and places in Europe, and I guess since I just knew people already from the UK, that was, or just from London in general.
I always really liked like England, and like I'd read about it since I was like a little kid, and I always wanted to go there, which sounds like so silly, but then like I really loved it, and then like I found out that before I even like started looking at schools, I wanted one with a good international program or like good study abroad program, so I could go to London. And then like I finally like was a junior, and I was like, oh, I guess I should start signing up, but I panicked. I choked like 3 different semesters because I was too scared to actually go. But then like I finally went like last semester. It was like it was the first semester of my senior year. It was like the best way to do it, I feel like, because it was like I got to do London, and then now I get to be stressed out.
The big thing that everyone always tells you when you're going to go to London is that people there are like, they're not as friendly, and they don't, they aren't as like jokey, but that's not true in the sense, like everyone's just as like, it's just a very dry.
Yeah,
it's a very sarcastic, very dry, sometimes a little meaner, but it's like the people are just as, are friendly. Yeah. It's just like, you have to figure out different things. Like, for example, they're just little phrases that you have to understand, like what they mean is different. Like, I guess this isn't the same thing, but like one phrase like "you all right?"
Yeah, you all right. Yeah,
here it means like "are you okay?" Like, do you just fall? Like, but there,
like, are you hurt? Like,
"You all right?" means like it just means like how's it going?
How's it going?
And you have to figure out like culturally like what's the response to that? Like, do they care?
They say like "you all right?" Like, "are you all right?" every time, like, which means "how are you?" It's like, "Hey, how are you?" But to me, like, I hear "you all right?" And I'm like, "What? Is there something wrong with me? I'm okay. I'm fine." And that's like the hardest thing to deal with. Like, it's so silly, but like just that, you're like, I don't know, like there's certain like language things that are like, what? That's different, I don't get it. Like definitely speech, like "you all right?" And then they say "oh," instead of like "you're going to the bathroom," it's "you're going to the toilet."
And which feels so wrong. It feels wrong.
It sounds so dirty
but then
and vulgar.
I kept saying it accidentally when I got back to
and then I liked it a lot.
I'm like, I'm gonna go to the toilet. Like, that's specific. Why say the toilet? Like, I guess it's true.
One time, our like RA in our building was RLS. When she was in America, she went to a restaurant and she was like, "Oh, can you show me the toilet?" And so the waitress apparently like walked her all the way to the bathroom and was like, "Here is the toilet." And then she was like, "I just want to know the direction of the loo." Like she was like, actually, I don't know. I thought that was funny.
But like, the funniest thing was the way they phrased their warnings. There's a picture of Jordana in front of a sign that says "private garden." Like, private garden, the playing of ball games prohibited within this area. Like, what is that? The playing of ball games.
Yeah, there's so much more proper. Just the way they
Oh, and culturally, another big thing is because it's a city and London is like such a major hub of people. How you could handle yourself is really important because you have to know how to ride the tube without being in anyone's way. Like, you can't, like, elevators are a big thing there because
there's like unspoken etiquette rules.
There's and if you don't follow them, people will give you death
threats. They won't say anything, but they will stare at you.
Like, elevators in America, like, they're a thing. We have elevators, but they're a huge thing in London because every single tube station has an elevator in and out of it, basically. So you have to know that you stand on the right and you walk on the left, and if you stand on the left, you will actually people will just run you over, probably. And the cars, you can get run over by cars. There's no right of way for anybody in London.
You don't have the train stop where it's like someone is under the train. Through. The train stops because someone is under the train.
Oh yeah, they're very.
What?
In America, when they say that the train is stopped for technical difficulties, in England they say basically like it's
someone got run over by a train.
They're just more they're more straightforward about things. But they're also, I don't know. It's just like it's different.
Coming from New York, like everyone's like the same type but less funny. Probably, I'd say.
But they're also they're sometimes very unapproachable. They're very reserved. And even if you're on like the tube or the night or like a bus during the day, it's completely silent. So I remember multiple times me and my friends and I just talking loud or just talking in general and getting just like really horrible looks because people know we're talking in like
American
in a closed
accent.
place.
Oh yeah.
And then you're an American.
Space, and we're Americans, so they just like hate.
It's like it's
Some
interesting.
people are worse than us.
Dirty
The thing
looks,
is, you hear so much about how Americans are the worst in the tube, and it's true that sometimes we were definitely the loudest. But sometimes we'd all be sitting on the train, like having what we would think would be kind of a too loud conversation, and then a boatload of drunk British people would come on, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Something like, "We're off to the pub!"
Like the one
screaming, and we're like, "We are not that bad compared to them."
The one
Really.
time when
And then like, I mean, I guess they drink a lot more.
Oh yeah,
They
drinking
definitely
culture is
drink a lot
different
more.
there.
They gotta work.
Their
they gotta
nights are
go
not
right
as
to a
late.
pub.
Their pubs close at like 1. Like their pubs close are like, and you can go clubbing, but like their nightlife ends earlier. But it's still there. Like if you go on the night bus at like 3 in the morning, it will be full of drunk.
That's
20
that's like one of the best spots to meet people. I was drunk on the bus at 3 in the morning. That was definitely the easiest time to meet people.
Yeah, and there's other differences, but those are the major ones that we can think of.
Yeah.
In America, it's like, because we're such a huge country set aside from Europe entirely, like, it's kind of a bigger deal to be like, ooh, someone's like, how exotic, like, someone's from another country. Yeah. But going there, like, people thought it was interesting because we were far from home, but it's so much more normal to have people from all different countries. Like, when you're, like, in a city, in London, you could be on a train and literally hear accents from every country in, like, that side of the world. So I think that it's more normal to meet travelers there. And that made it like... I
think we're more diverse in like color, but they're more diverse in like...
In travel, yeah. So it made it more comfortable to be there because people didn't really care as much that you were like... I mean, I thought it was interesting, but no one was like, oh, like you're American? Like, I was afraid of that.
Yeah, we definitely thought going over the
I was afraid that they
would...
But no one really cares because they're so used to travelers.
And like a lot of them actually love us. Like,
yeah, I know, a lot of them...
a lot of them actually really like Americans.
Especially outside of London, a lot of people got super excited.
Really interesting, yeah. Especially outside of London. Like even Wales, they thought we were so good.
Oh,
some guy
in Wales, they
my
were like,
accent.
Where did you come from?
Your accent's amazing. I love your accent.
They asked us why we were there because I guess people don't go to Wales.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they were like country bums coming into Cardiff for the big day in the city, but
yeah.
The thing that a British person told me was that compared to them, like American people are very fake. So he said you could go up to someone and say like, Americans are always like, oh hello, how are you? And then everyone's like, oh good, I'm good. But it's really like you're probably not really good.
Yeah.
Even though you're saying it, so like he was saying that he thinks that Americans are very fake in that way. And that's just, it's like what's the point of this whole like, oh hello, hi, how you doing? Like when it's just fake.
Well, I was bracing for meaner though, because like I remember like some random people who I didn't even have a reason to. Like there's this one dude who works in the storage facility that was the office that my office was in. My office was very sketchy, and I remember like walking in. There's always this guy who worked there, not even related to my office, and not like my job at all. And I would just be like, hey. And I remember one day like I didn't come by for like 2 weeks, and I went to Berlin or something. And then I come in, and he's like, I haven't seen you forever. Like where have you been? And I was thinking like I didn't expect like people like him. Like a lot of people are like that. They're super friendly, and I remember being like, oh okay, so you guys are all. Or like once I would get a coffee, and she'd be like, so what are you doing here? Like what are you doing in London? Like because they know that you're American. Yeah. Like there are definitely people who like are like that, but in general, people are more friendly than we were told.
We did a lot of traveling. We did a lot of traveling
together. We all
did
the same places.
Yeah, except for you went to Dublin after.
I went to 2 other places after you left. But
we went to, I guess, like to list everything. We started off, the first trip we did as like kind of a trial trip was Cardiff for the weekend in Wales.
2 hours.
Like 2 or 3 hours out of London. Which was like, I think counts as a trip because it's another country.
It's another country.
Yeah. So we did Cardiff and Wales.
That's
we did
one of the more fun.
Yeah, I love Cardiff. I love all the trips.
Yeah,
we did Amsterdam. This isn't ordered anywhere, but Amsterdam, Paris, Berlin. Barcelona, Lisbon, and...
Did you say Berlin?
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing one thing. Maybe not.
Paris?
Maybe that's everything. And then obviously London, and then the little trips we did around London.
I went to Belgium.
I didn't go to Belgium. Well, I drove through Belgium.
Sure, most people went to Paris. Like Rome was a big one, so like Italy. Also this one weekend, like this one weekend, I think like probably like more than half of the program, we all went to Amsterdam the same weekend.
Yeah, that was so weird.
That was awesome. And it
I didn't even see you. Like we traveled so much that like I'm pretty sure that entire weekend we were both in Amsterdam. I don't think
I don't think I saw you either, but it was still really cool.
Like they took us like around, like we went to Bath, which is like a little city, like a historical city in England, like an hour out of London.
Like all the Roman baths and stuff.
Yeah,
it was really cool. I would never have gone there.
I wouldn't have gone there. And they took us like Brighton.
Stonehenge was the same day.
Stonehenge.
Like we would go to Stonehenge. It's literally like
Beachy Head
in the middle of nowhere.
So they took us on little things, took us out to dinner. We did like Indian food at Brick Lane, all that stuff. So they definitely made sure that we did stuff together.
Yeah, the Indian food.
That was good.
So good.
Oh, Brick Lane. That was a big touristy spot that we went to. I saw Jude Law shooting a scene.
Oh my
God. I
God.
was eating at an Indian restaurant on Brick Lane, and we were right by the window, and right across from the street from the window was an alleyway, and Jude Law was shooting a scene right there. So cool. And apparently like 10 minutes before me and my friends had entered the restaurant, he went in there and asked to use the bathroom and handed the waiter like 50 pounds just to use the bathroom.
The tours we went on, they took us on a tour of Parliament, which was really interesting. I just got to see like the rooms that they.
Yeah, that was just cool to see like their government. Like I feel like I'll never even be able to get into like the White House or like the Senate. So like being able to go into their government office and like seeing where they sit.
And
like, you can't actually sit in their chairs. You have to be an elected official to sit in the chair.
It's so stereotypically British, like all of it.
It's so like traditional and
the portraits on the walls. And it was interesting.
And their system of government's actually pretty modern. I really like
no, totally. It's like their government isn't antiquated. It's just like the tours are very like. The big thing about touring anything in Europe is how much older everything there is in America.
Yeah,
if you go on any tour, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this has been here since hundreds and hundreds of years," and you're just like, "Oh, like the oldest thing I've seen is 200 years old," and then you go build.
A lot of times you can't take pictures, which is really annoying. Just because you have to preserve the history or whatever, and it was just like.
Oh, we went on a tour of the BBC, which was because we're all media students. I thought that was relevant, which was really cool. Like we got to go into the studios and
they're moving it.
Do like little what?
They're moving the
tour.
No, the BBC, the whole building. They're moving it. Remember? Yeah. This building's not even going to be around anymore.
But still, getting to do the tour, but all their operations and see their studios, and they had little games we could do. Where like Matt went on a green screen and did a news report and all that stuff.
Oh, like I was a freaking pen, and the other people got like a whole T-shirt or something.
And then after we went to we also what other touristy things? We went to the Eiffel Tower in Paris, which honestly it's just a tower. It was beautiful. And during the day we're just like, whoa.
We didn't even go up it. Yeah, at night that's where it's
during the day it's cool to see just because of how iconic it is, but it's not striking or anything. But at night
we were there
they light it up.
Sunrise too and everything. And
it was beautiful in the sunrise.
Yeah.
But at night it's wrapped in these lights that just like kind of sparkle, and that was gorgeous. We took a little
and we did like
ride.
We did the riverboat cruise, which like went up and down the river between in Paris, that runs between Paris and that was really cool. I don't really remember anything else besides the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. Other touristy stuff. What did we do? Well, in Barcelona, we went to Sagrada Familia, which is like a famous cathedral.
Westminster Abbey.
Parliament.
Big Ben. Big Ben, Parliament. We did a tour of Parliament, which is really cool.
That was cool.
Oh, we also did a tour of BBC, which is really awesome because not many people actually get to do that.
And Bloomberg News, which was
Bloomberg News. For one of our classes, our professor took us on a homeless tour, is what it was called.
Yeah, it's called Unseen London or something.
Okay, Unseen London, and it was tours that were given by homeless people. So we had this homeless woman, and it was her basic area of where she, I guess, is always homeless. Like this is where she
used to live when she was homeless.
Yeah, I think that she still is homeless.
Maybe.
But it's just she took us around London and told us history about it. And it was just kind of weird. She'd be like, "Oh, then I slept on that bench over there on that park." And we were just like, okay.
Yeah. It was near it was like near where the lawyers go to. I don't remember the school, but it's like where the lawyers are. And she also it's also near what's that market area? No.
Wait, what do you think?
I don't remember. It's a touristy market. Then after I smoked a joint and then went to Cruisenboot, which is like a cat boat. It's like a cat homeless shelter on the
canal.
Why did I say homeless shelter? It's a cat shelter. It's a cat animal shelter on the canal, and it's the greatest thing ever. They were like shooting a documentary, and I'm in a documentary about a cabo. I don't know. It was awesome. So that was the touristy thing that I did.
Tour of the Guinness factory, right? That's the one thing I paid for. That was a really good one.
I did a tour of the Heineken factory.
Yeah, they were big into the breweries, so like, I mean, that was probably one of the better tours. I mean, just because they make it like such an experience. Like, it was literally like Willy Wonka, but with beer. Like when you walked in there, it was just like crazy. Like,
yeah, I didn't do that tour. That was in Ireland, right?
Yeah,
I did the tour, the Heineken tour in Amsterdam, and that was similar. Like that was probably touristy, but it was a super awesome tour. Like they have all these steps that teach you how to pour the perfect pint. That you see the process of the brewing. You get to taste. You get like 3 beers.
They make it interesting for how like not that.
You're in a music video. They do all these like. There was a 4D ride on that tour where they like pretend that you're being brewed and they spray warm stuff and they shake you around and they're like, "This watch the process." It was like they do as much as they could to make it a thing, which was fun. But yeah, so we did tours of stuff. And, like, you know, we went to museums, but in general, I don't think that we were big. Like, we didn't go to... I can't even think of anything right now. I'm, like, blanking. But we didn't do the classic, like...
museums and stuff. Like, we went to, like, a history museum in Cardiff. Like, that's the only thing I remember.
Oh, that was cool.
Museums.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even go to the London Museum.
Oh, I didn't go to the London Museum, but I went to Victoria Novel Museum, we went to the Science Museum.
The Science Museum, we didn't even finish the Science
Museum. Well, we did a lot. We spent a while there. We did, like, we didn't do the whole museum.
Yeah.
And I did, we went ice skating National History Museum, and I went to Tate Modern, and
I went to Tate Modern. Oh my god.
Tate Modern. The Tate Modern is cool.
That was like one of the things like the last week where I was
the top floor has a view of the whole city.
And I never went.
I mean, like we did stuff. We had a little to-do list that we kept up, like the kind of the touristy checkpoints we wanted to reach. Like go to Primrose Hill and oversee London. Like go to Harrods, the department store that we lived near. Like which is like a famously like huge lavish department store.
Just because I can't afford anything in there.
Oh yeah, we could say that's a tour. I bought one pastry for €2 in the cafe. That was what I bought at Harrods. Everything else was $1 million. But so yeah, in general we didn't do a lot of super touristy things, but everything we did could be kind of defined as a tourist.
We had like bus tours included in the trip, where we would get like a tour guide and they would like speak over the bus.
We went to Stonehenge. That was that's the most touristy thing we probably did. We went to Stonehenge.
Some of them were like better than others. I can't really remember, but there was one guy who was just like so funny. Like every time he said something, it would just crack me up. Yeah. I don't even know why.
I think that the trips they took us on were probably the touristy, because they took us on an actual, guided bus tour to Stonehenge. Guided bus tour.
They hired guides for it, which is like probably a good thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, some people slept through most of the bus ride, but when you're awake, you learn lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, and like the guy that was funny made you stay up, and the girl that was boring as crap made you want to go to sleep. So.
A good thing to do is like if you stay at a hostel, they have like free to they have pub crawls, which are like $10 to go to like a bunch of different bars in the city, which is really cool. And they also have like tours in the morning, which are like free to, like most of them will have like free to like whatever donation you give, and those are really cool. Like I went to like Malaga, which is like a beach town in Spain, and I learned a lot. And I also did the pub crawl before I went to the thing, and I got really, really, really drunk. So both were fun.
And when you do stuff with the hostel, like I feel like those were less touristy because everyone who's there is like other people from all over Europe and all over the country and the world, and like the hostel people are usually very down to like down to earth. It's like all the stuff we did in Lisbon didn't feel very touristy, even though they were tours.
Yeah,
because we got friendly with our pub crawl guy. Like we hung out with him after the pub crawl and stuff. Like so.
He was native. Yeah. That was the place where we hung out. Lisbon, we hung out with the most natives.
Yeah.
Another thing that was cool was when, so everyone would do weekend trips to different countries, and our thing was to like pick one night, so it would be like usually Thursday night or Friday night, we take like an overnight bus, because buses were the cheapest. So say like, for instance, when everybody went to Amsterdam, I went on a Thursday night, but everyone else went on a Friday night, so we would make our trips, like the 13-hour bus ride that it was, we would do an overnight, so it would be like free room and board for one night, and then we'd get there, like, I got to Amsterdam at 7 a.m. the next morning, and couldn't check into my hostel, I think, until 1 p.m. or like 12 p.m., so we were just like walking aimlessly until then, but...
Like, where did you stay in Amsterdam?
I don't remember. I stayed with Joe Fricker.
Nice.
I don't know, but it was just the different ways of like trying to figure out how you're going to get the most time.
How you're going to save money.
And save money, definitely. it sucks. Like that 13-hour bus ride to Amsterdam was hell.
Yeah.
But I would do it again.
I would do it again.
We were only going for the free stuff, so.
Oh yeah, we were
anything that costs money to tour. We were. Like,
I was on a very big budget the whole semester, which I think definitely made the difference between us doing a classic. One of the biggest things that kept me from being such a huge tourist, besides not wanting to be one, is a lot of the stuff costs money. Like doing the London Eye I didn't do. Like I just did the stuff that was more just like exploring and like going to museums, because the museums in London are basically all free. Like
that's why I hated paying, just because like so many things. It made us more creative. When they asked me to pay, I was like, excuse me. Like,
I think it made our traveling more creative because we had to figure out what can we do that's the cheapest.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing we can do.
Like we're not like a rich family going to Europe who's just like, let's do anything we want, because we can afford it.
I think like a lot of our traveling was like the general idea. Like we came into it with the knowledge I don't want to be a tourist, so I think that we did what we could to not be tourists. So it's like we were tourists by definition. We were Americans touring Europe.
Definitely at first I felt like a tourist because even when we would go to somewhere like a coffee shop, just the service and the way you would even go up and order what you wanted and to pay was completely different. So definitely at first I felt like a tourist, but once you figured out kind of like what their manners and what they like to do or the way that they do it, it was easy to figure out. But then it wasn't so bad. I mean, after a couple of weeks, it was like, people would ask us directions to places.
Oh my god, that was the greatest
feeling. And then the best feeling is being able to tell someone how to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Which in life, even living in America, I can't even. I'm horrible with that, but if someone's like, how do you get to that? If I'm ever just like.
Someone asked me how to get to the South Kensington tube station, I was like, that way.
Definitely at first, when we first started traveling, like probably around like, our first 2 trips were Cardiff and Paris, and probably like, after Paris, I started feeling less like a tourist.
Well, I know that Cardiff was definitely easier to not feel like a tourist because we were still in a place where most some people spoke Welsh.
We had heard nothing to do in Cardiff. We went in there we just heard it was like the capital of Wales.
And it was fun. I had a great time.
We even looked up because there's like a Doctor Who experience. Like that would be really touristy to do. Like that's like Cardiff is like a big Doctor Who.
But then once we got to, I think that the biggest thing about we were very aware because we're trying to be like. We tried very hard not to come across as tourists, but I think because we were aware of that, we weren't as bad as you look around and you can usually tell immediately who's not even trying, who's wearing like USA sweatshirts with their snapping the pictures, like holding the map out. We tried not to be like that, but you're gonna get lost sometimes. You're gonna have to have your map out. You're gonna have to ask for directions. You don't speak the language. You have there's unless you are like really amazing at traveling, which we weren't yet. You are gonna look like a tourist, but I think that we were always conscious about not being in people's way and trying to have a more non-traditional enjoyment of everything.
Well, when I stopped feeling like a tourist was when I spent like the whole day alone in Paris. Like I was just like in Paris by myself. Like I just like took the metro to wherever I wanted to go because there was like if you were a student it was like €4 to take the subway unlimitedly wherever you wanted to go. So I literally was just like going around the city on the subway. I literally at one point just like stopped and got like a beer at a bar like by myself and like just sat outside because that's like what people do in Paris. So I was like, I'll just do what people in Paris do. Like it's not touristy.
Paris, I still felt a little touristy because it was our first trip out of the UK. So that was the first time that I was trying to. I didn't have phone service, there's all this stuff that you had to like.
For Wi-Fi,
we got separated for the entire day.
Off the grid,
and then our hotel was like kind of off base, and we had to like stay there. Like Paris was probably the least organized weekend out of all of them that I could say, and that was like made me realize like I made me try more hard the other time we traveled to be less disorganized. And by the time we got to like, I think the moment I truly felt like less touristy was probably like. Going to Berlin, I didn't feel.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, I didn't feel touristy. I mean,
Amsterdam, we just like.
We just kind of walked around, like
chilled, walked around.
You do the.
We had tickets to a rave that we went to.
Yeah,
we had,
like you do touristy stuff. Like the longest we stayed somewhere was I think Barcelona.
Yeah.
And in Barcelona, like we were there for like 5 days, and that's like enough time to like really do. We did the touristy stuff, but then like you don't feel like you're walking around being like.
We got paella. We went to the beach. We went to the Dali Museum.
But you try to still like absorb the culture and not just be like, take some pictures, Yeah, we took pictures, lots of pictures.
But then we also, we went to like the clubs. We went to Halloween like with Barcelona.
Yeah, the nightlife makes you feel less touristy.
Definitely.
And you meet people from your hostel. You meet people from traveling.
Like walking around people who only spoke Spanish, like zero English, definitely made me feel not like a tourist.
The least touristy that I felt the entire trip was Lisbon. because no one went to Lisbon. We were the only ones who went to Portugal.
Yeah, we really had no idea what to do there.
We just heard it was cool, and we went, and it might have been like my favorite place that we went. Like I had so much fun there.
It was definitely my favorite place.
That was the place. I remember one point we went on a pub crawl with our hostel, which seems a little touristy, but honestly, I didn't even feel that touristy.
There was like one other American there.
Yeah, we lost our tour guide, and I remember we were walking around. My friend who smoked cigarettes needed to bum a cigarette, and we found these teenagers, like 20-somethings, who looked our age, and we sat down and started talking to them. They were all native Lisbon, 21-year-olds, and they spoke perfect. And we just talked about we had so much in common. They were all like film and media and acting majors, and so were we. So it was just the funniest thing. In that moment, I'm just like, wow, like this doesn't feel like we're tourists. It just feels like we're meeting some other people. Like,
and they were cool. Yeah,
that whole experience felt very not touristy because none of the things we were doing were like, baby's first trip to London. Like, they were all like creative things to do. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely when you start getting to talk to the locals and they start talking to you back like you're normal, then you stop feeling like a tourist.
Touristy.
And that's tourist stuff.
That's tourist stuff.